My name is Brian Berthoud, and this is the case study for PM 514 Missional Churches and Leadership, Fuller Theological Seminary, and today's date is March 8th. I want to quickly preface this video lecture. It is an addendum to last night's lecture that I submitted. This one includes the PowerPoint presentation, which has a handful of pictures that I feel contribute to the overall message more completely, and that is really the premise for me to resubmit this assignment. The practical theology diagram is going to be the main focus of this lecture, walking through these 5 steps: applications, reflections, how they interrelate and commingle with one another. These 5 steps are not necessarily designed to go in any particular order, as you can see within that diagram. However, these slides will be going through a sequential 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 flow. For this first section, the current praxis, this video that I have, or this picture here, illustrates an empathy type mindset of kind of feeling the body or feeling pain and grief in one another. So that's kind of the premise or a picture that at least illustrates my current praxis. When I began this course and its subsequent engagement in practical theology, I realized that my examined life is both layered with complexity and riddled with missteps. As I take a step back, in order to gain a better vantage point of my cultural praxis, I can see how the last 2 years have radically altered my life's trajectory. I hungered to know more about what was happening in my life once I realized that I have been born again of the Spirit. This led me to complete my undergraduate degree in Christian Ministries at California Baptist University, along with enrolling into the Masters of Divinity program at Fuller Theological. With an ever-broadening perspective of the church, I am beginning to outwardly express what I have been feeling in my heart for years. While I do experience a great peace and comfort from the Holy Spirit, there is also a growing sense of anguish for the church community as a whole. With this present hurt, I am compelled to no longer be passively attending the local church, but somehow becoming more involved. In the last several months, I've applied to over 50 different church communities, ranging from California to Egypt. I thought it'd be easy to land a spot in a community church, perhaps even my own local church, but the Spirit has prevented me from taking any steps in this direction. Along with the help of this class, I am beginning to see how the Spirit is working in my very own community. The second step, the culture and context. This is my community, the beach, Imperial Beach, and this is a common everyday occurrence, people flocking to the beach, on the sand, in the waters. The culture of my neighborhood is a unique blend of a small beach community on the outskirts of San Diego that also borders Tijuana, Mexico. There is a strong Mexican influence on the community, in which, according to the United States Census Bureau, 50% of the population is Hispanic. In addition to the cultural dynamics that being a border town presents, which includes the drama of a strong border patrol presence, San Diego serves as the principal port for the Navy's Pacific Fleet. Somehow all of these cultures combine to form a laid-back beach town where hundreds of people every day flock to the beaches to glimpse the ocean. Now, upon shifting this perspective to the margins of society, San Diego County has one of the most prolific homeless populations in the United States. According to the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development, San Diego County has the 4th largest homeless population in the country. This information follows suit with the rest of California as being by far the most homeless populated states in all of the United States. So now, depending on your perspective, San Diego is home to some of the most affluent and diverse cultures in the world, as well as harboring one of the country's worst homeless populations. The Christian texts that have been influencing me, this book in particular, Alan Roxburgh's Missional Joining God in the Neighborhood, and subsequent assignments from this class has really kind of flipped my perspective on what's being communicated now about joining God in the community as opposed to restructuring a specific church programs. As I mentioned, within my current praxis, there's a significant amount of schooling that I'm involved in. As I'm in the second quarter of the divinity program, I am continuously being stretched in ways I never imagined before. I am realizing the needs of the people are great, but the laborers are few. During this class, 2 specific Lectio Divina readings have been particularly enlightening. In conjunction with the 70 being sent in Luke chapter 10, Nick Warren's comments that we need to continue to resist the momentum to turn inward and keep focusing outward. Along with Paul's vision of the man from Macedonia in Acts chapter 16, I am being challenged to remain steadfast in a similar pattern of being zealous to go while being prohibited by the Spirit. As I've begun to join the Spirit in the neighborhood, a new world is opening up in front of me in front of my eyes. Alan Roxburgh's Missional Joining God in the Neighborhood has been pivotal within this process. Luke is working with these stories to assist Gentile Christians faced with the crisis of identity to grasp how they might reorient themselves in a new space. And that reorientation involves taking on counterintuitive practices and rules for being God's people. Stories. 2 pictures here. The homeless population on the left is downtown San Diego, 1 block, and these are not permanent fixtures, but tents where people live day to day on the streets. The picture on the right is a picture of the slums in Tijuana, Mexico, and the area that I've been recently had 500 of these so-called homes kind of up against one another, as this one is here, and just made out of cardboard and anything that could be found. Living a life of continuous movement from action to reflection and to further action is nothing new to me. My entire life has been in a state of close examination in relation to my actions. However, with the propositions from this class, I'm in uncharted territory. I tend to be someone who likes a well thought out plan, complete with contingency plans. So this prospect of leaving my belongings behind and becoming guests in someone else's home is a stretch of my imagination. As we read about the Exodus, the exile, or the earliest churches, we can place these stories alongside our own in order to reconsider our perceptions, convictions, habits, and imaginations. Once I began to use the practical theology method to assist in the discernment for the will of God in my life, I found myself sitting down to meals with a local homeless man named Eric. I realized there's a great learning curve ahead of me within the art of conversation because so much of my time is spent online. I have lost a step with face-to-face conversations, and during a few meals with Eric, I sense a powerful alignment within the Spirit of God. The call to the neighborhood is a call to discover what God is already doing and become part of it. And then the 5th step, the imagination experiments. These are a couple components that are on the front of my mind. The picture on the left is the border wall. So on the left is Imperial Beach, and on the right is Tijuana, and the border stands out. And then the San Diego Rescue Mission is something that I've been in contact recently with my local pastor, possibly about getting plugged into their community in some way. As I take some steps further to engage the community, and there are a couple of thoughts at the front of my mind, keeping in mind the work of the Spirit to prove the world wrong about sin, righteousness, and judgment, along with the ministry of reconciliation that is upon the community, I pray that I will be bold in the faith, not seeking my own understanding, but the will of God. Since my rough draft of this case study, I have made the trip across the border into Tijuana, Mexico, to visit what the local church is doing there. In a very astounding way, the spirit of the church community is right next to the slums, which house over 500 families who are left living off the grid. These people have been pushed to the side of the literal road, and the church has been placed in a way to nurture the comfort and peace of the Spirit. I am praying that I can be further involved within this community in some way, shape, or form. Also in the works is an informal meeting with the San Diego Rescue Mission, whose ministry focuses on the homeless population in San Diego. Perhaps the Spirit is opening doors for me to further cross socio-economic boundaries into the homeless population. It certainly is an odd and empowering feeling to be desperate for the will of God. However, I am not responsible for grand plans to change the world. God is already doing that. It is simply a matter of joining in what God is doing. Thank you for listening. This concludes my presentation.